Little video here on wheel lacing. We've got this 21-inch Harley rim, which is probably the easiest one there is out there to do, but it is a good introductory wheel, and it'll show you guys the basics of lacing. This one's not in too bad shape. It's got a little bit of corrosion and a little bit of light rust because this is an aftermarket wheel that came with chrome spokes. So we're going to put these polished spokes on. These are from Buchanan. They're polished stainless, so we won't have the corrosion issues with these like we do with the chrome. So we'll go over the basics of this, show you guys some tips and tricks that will make this easier, and maybe make a nice relaxing video to watch. I think this is fun. I like spoken wheels. Not everybody seems to be able to want to know how to do it anymore though. One tip we're going to do first though is we've got these style wheel weights on here. Most people will get in here to remove this and they'll start prying with a screwdriver in this area right here. That's really a terrible way to do it. You can scratch your rim all up. So I'm going to give you guys a little tech tip on how to get this off nice and easy. To remove this, we're going to take a 1/4 20 bolt. We're going to put it in the gap like so, and then we're going to take our vice grips and we are going to set the vice grips so that the breakover point, which is where a vice grip gains its strength from, when the whole mechanism basically goes straight. As it goes straight, force approaches infinity, and we're going to clamp it, and then once we clamp it, that will loosen, that bolt gets pressed into the gap and widens the gap, and then you can carefully then just take that weight right off. Release your vice grips, take it out, and the weight's gone. Now there's a couple ways we can get these spokes out of here. You can use bolt cutters, you can use a cutoff wheel. This one's actually pretty nice though, so I'm gonna unspoke it. I find it almost always easier to work with a wheel when it's on the trimming stand. So I do very little laying flat on a table. Obviously the basic assembly I do, but that's about it. As I was saying, this is actually one of the easiest types of wheels to do. You can, in fact, on this style of Harley-Davidson hub, change these spokes one at a time. Now, of course, you can't tension and true that way, but if I was worried that I might forget how the spokes went on this particular style, I could take a spoke out, replace it, and then keep going. I don't do it that way because it's way slower, much slower, but it is possible. There are lots of other types of hubs, import hubs, any of the Harley-Davidson narrow glide aluminum front hubs that you cannot do that way. And everyone's a little different. Some have to be assembled, all the spokes have to be in the wheel, or all the spokes have to be on the hub, and then the hub needs to basically be positioned correctly, and then you kind of lay the rim over it and insert all the spokes in, so it's basically kind of already assembled. You lay the rim on and then put the nipples on. I wouldn't recommend trying to initially loosen your spokes from this side though, or you will be rounding out a lot of nipples. there it is. There's a hub. We'll get this cleaned up. We'll get our workstation cleaned up. Always want to clean up in between steps. And then we'll come back and put the polished stainless spokes in it. Okay, we cleaned the hub. Got the little surface rust off with some 4-0 steel wool. That's your best product, that, and I like to use it with some spray wax or something like that as a lubricant, but 4-0 steel wool. It's ultra fine, I think they call it. It's excellent at getting light surface rust off of chrome. Got rid of the old parts. They're in the box over here so that I cannot get them confused with the new parts. And I would recommend, I've learned this by making mistakes. The wise man learns from other people's mistakes, so go ahead and learn from mine. Don't leave the old spokes laying on the table near your new spokes, because even though you think at a glance, oh, these old spokes look like junk, I'll be able to tell them apart. Wind comes by or somebody bumps into your bench and knocks your stuff all over the place. I've had a hard time before telling the old spokes from the new spokes, and then you put it on and you look down at the job you did and you're like, that nipple doesn't match. And you have to go find the new nipple and change it out. Also, count your parts. Make sure you have the proper number of spokes. In this case, it's 40. So I have 40 spokes and 40 nipples. Laid them out into 2 groups of 20. And I've got my nipples laid out while they're counted. You always want to use lubricant as you're assembling your spokes. This is a Buchanan's polished stainless, so they supply you with the lubricant that they recommend. So I've gone ahead and put a couple drops in each of these spokes. I will say if you use Buchanan's, there is pretty much just enough lubricant in here to do all the spokes with about a drop and a half to 2 drops in each spoke. And I do that all ahead of time. It seems to speed things up over trying to lubricate each nipple individually as I'm going to put it on. So now I'm going to start by referencing the picture that I took of the rim ahead of time to where that I can see that the inside spokes go clockwise when viewed from the side you're on, and they're both going the same direction. Like I said, these you can actually do one at a time. So my inside spokes, I'm going to do them first, and they're going to go clockwise, which would be this direction, and then I'm going to find the nipple. Each of these punched holes is facing a certain direction. So you can see this one is facing this way, and this one is also facing this way, but this one's facing kind of up, this one's facing kind of down. So since this is the top and my inside spokes go clockwise, I'm going to go ahead and face it to that side. And you'll have to move this around so the spoke gets in, clears everything. And then, because this is a Harley-Davidson 40-spoke pattern, every 4 holes is going to be the same spoke. So these are inside spokes from the top. Every 4th one will be an inside spoke from the top. And it's kind of funny, you wouldn't think it to look at it, but these spokes actually go in way better one direction. That way they don't go in so well. This way they slip right in. Most hubs are like that. Once again, be careful not to scratch the rim with the sharp threads on the spoke. I'll say it once again, you always want to make sure that there is lubricant on your spoke threads. Even if they're steel, manuals and instructions don't call for it, I'd highly recommend at least maybe some anti-seize, some grease, or some oil. To both help with the assembly and also the long-term resistance to the thread seizing up from corrosion. This is kind of the first decision you need to make. I picked the pattern from the picture and or the service manual instructions, whatever for this. We've got the inside spokes facing clockwise, and they're going to go to the hole that's appropriate for them, and every fourth hole in this one is going to be an inside spoke. Now when I come back and go start putting the second row of spokes in, you need to know how many spokes your spoke will cross. So these are cross 4 pattern. So this spoke right here will cross 4 other spokes to find its home. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4. So it will go to the hole that it lines up with once it has crossed 4 spokes. Once again, we've got a top row of holes that are angled this direction. Do need to make a decision. It doesn't seem like there's only one possibility. You can kind of look that this spoke is just this side of this one where it comes in. So it would make sense that it would be just the hole over from that one. One final row. Gonna go the opposite way as the next level, and once again cross 4 to the one hole. It should make sense. And there we go, 40 spokes installed. This is definitely, there's a general good principle in mechanics. Don't tighten anything until everything is installed. If you're putting a cover on, don't tighten the bolts as you're putting them on. Start all the bolts, make sure everything's aligned, and then snug them down a little bit at a time in a kind of in a crossing pattern. This is definitely one where patience early on will lead to a much more fun time at the end. You can definitely get impatient at the beginning of this job and make your life miserable when you get down to the end and actually have to get this wheel round. So as you can see, got them all on there, a few threads started. There's lots of slop, lots of wobble. That's what I want at this point. My trick for making the true on this easy and getting a nice even spoke tension across the board starts from starting with this kind of looseness, and then I am going to tighten all the spokes to the same point on to begin with. So in this, something like this, generally I'm going to go with either, in this one it looks like I'm gonna just take the nipples right to where there's no thread showing, and that will give me the same theoretical length on all the different spokes, and then from there I will continue to tighten like a half a turn at a time all the way around. Because remember, due to the tension nature of spokes, anything I do on this side is also affecting this side over here. So I don't want to just tighten this down, because then these spokes will be way longer and these will be way shorter, and my wheel will have a huge hop in it. So I'm going to put it on the truing stand at this point. I don't tighten it any tighter than that until I put it on the truing stand. I'm going to take all these nipples to the end of the threads on this one. Sometimes it'll be 2 threads showing, sometimes it'll, it may be whatever it is that seems to make them about even to where it just starts to put some tension into the spokes. And then from there, I'll go a half a turn until they are snug, and then I will begin tightening by truing. And that I've found to be the fastest and most effective way. Okay, I've got them all taken up all the thread, even with the last thread. So now I'm going to go around and put about a quarter to a half turn in each one all the way around. I think I may do a quarter on this because they're starting to get a little bit tight. Some of the spokes are fairly tight. See, there's not near as much wobble, although we do have some spokes that are fairly loose. This is pretty normal. Always want to reference a same point on the wheel. I use the valve stem hole because they're always there. And that way I don't get 3/4 of the way around, think I'm done, start over, and you end up with a quarter of the wheel tightened and a quarter of the wheel loose. So we're just going to go from here, and we'll just go, we'll go about a half a turn. And at this point, we're going to start to, if we find any spokes that are already getting tight, we will not tighten them any more than finger tension at this point. There was one. That one's fairly tight, finger tension. Same as that one, not that one though. Okay, and that was one turn around. I'll go for the next one. I'm just going to turn them all a quarter. If I find any that are really, really loose, I'll just take up the slack. The threads on the spoke is a good starting point, but it's not a super precise process when they put the threads on them, I don't believe, so we'll find a turn or two difference. Okay. You can go around, look for any looser ones. Okay. And honestly, if we're just hand tightening them, we're starting at a pretty good spot. So now I'm going to get my dial indicator. And I'd say we have more side to side, so I'm going to go ahead and start there. If they're kind of about equal, I usually start with hop. And in the end, the spec for this wheel is run out within 30 thousandths. So now, evenness is the key. And like I said, once you get to this point, you can kind of tighten using the dial indicator. So here at the dial indicator, it is as far as it gets that way. So I'm going to take these spokes right here and tighten a quarter turn for a few groups of spokes. To start to move with that. And now to keep it even, so that I don't end up creating a lot of hop while I'm doing this, I'm not just going to go one direction the whole time. I'm going to now go back to it as far as it goes the other way and pull it back this way. And that will help keep everything even back and forth. The tension should start to feel real even, and of course the amount of movement on the dial indicator should get less and less each go around. As you get less than 50 thousandths, you'll start to find the natural bumps and wiggles in the rim itself. This one has one right there, and I can see that the actual weld where they bent this wheel around into a hoop and then welded it right there, you'll always usually get a little bit of a bump there. And you can see it easily in the dial indicator. At this point, I don't need this. Don't go perfect one way and then switch to the other way, or you'll just mess yourself up. So we've got this one. Actually, technically, this one is within spec, just barely. So you can see it's got that. There's the jump at the weld right there. Boom, right there. Without that, it's actually about 26 thousandths. With it, it's about 35. So this is a pretty good rim, actually. I only have 9 thousandths at the weld, but now I'm going to switch from lateral to radial runout. One of the trickier parts of radial runout is often there's stamped letters and things like that, so the hard part can be finding a smooth spot on the rim to stick to. And we're actually 17 thousandths right now, even with the weld. So technically this rim is now trued within specification. That didn't take long, and once again I found it comes down to starting with trying to get your spoke tightening even before you're putting any tension on it. They're not all going to be perfect, because once again I don't think the process of putting threads into spokes, I don't think they watch that within the thousandths of how much thread they put on it, but it is a good even starting point. They all seem to be within a couple of turns. So if you get them all evenly to the same threads, and then tighten them a little bit at a time till there's a good amount of take up all the way around the wheel, and then go back and take the slack out of the ones that might have had a little less thread on them, and then finish your tightening while you're truing, because as you're truing it, it'll show you where the loose spokes are, because that's where you'll have wobbles and hops. So now that I've got that basically within spec, I will go around and tighten all of these spokes a quarter turn at a time, probably do 2 or 3 revolutions. These spokes keep your bike on its wheels through tension. So the amount of tension that's on these spokes has to be greater than whatever weight you could ever put on the motorcycle, or the shock from any bump you could go over. As long as you've got more tension into the initial tightening of the spoke, then the forces it's going to see on the road, this will stay nice and true. If you don't get them tight enough, there will be some elasticity in it, and the wheel will lose true. Your spokes will loosen up. Once your spokes loosen up, they'll start to break, and you'll get wobbles and things like that. So we'll go around now, tighten a quarter turn at a time. This wheel, I want to go for approximately 80 inch-pounds. Then once I've got it final tightened, I will check and do a final true for lateral and radial runout. And then the wheel is pretty much ready to go on. Once I've got everything basically tight, I'm going to go ahead and potentially ruin it. So I'm going to take because all of these spoke heads sit into a taper, and sometimes when you first assemble it, they don't get in there nice and tight, sit in there nice, and as you go over bumps and ride down the road, they'll seat a little deeper, and you'll lose a little bit of your true. So I like to go around and just go ahead and tap. Once again, I'm going to find my valve stem hole for a starting point. There it is right there. Now I'm going to go ahead and tap all of these spokes in to their seats a little bit deeper. And like I said, sometimes you potentially ruin this, because if you get one that really was sitting up there on top and it seats, you can mess up your true a little bit. There is one more step, and that is you can in fact lace the rim off to one side or another. If I tighten all these spokes and loosen all these spokes on this side, the rim will move that way. If I tighten all these and loosen all these, the rim will move that way. So I can use that, if I'm building something custom, I can use that to center the tire in the forks in the front fender, that kind of thing. But that is something you need to be aware of. If you use this, tighten them a little bit at a time, they'll almost always turn out dead center in the hub. But I am going to have to go back and get the measurement, because this in fact wheel is going on a springer, and the springer is naturally offset the rim to the hub per Harley-Davidson specification. So I'm going to look that up. I'll get my straight edge out. We'll measure that, see how we're doing, move the rim how we need it to move, and then do our final tighten and then our final check. But that's pretty much lacing and truing in a nutshell, folks. Thank you very much. Got about 16, 17 thousandths that way, plus the weld. So that side's in spec. Really can't true the weld out. Sometimes if you get lucky, you can put it in the middle so that it doesn't really affect your overall measurement. That's 26 overall. A little bit more tension right there where it's the farthest away from the hub. And we got about 20, so well within spec.